Hi there, I'm Don.
And hi, I'm Cindy. Welcome to Pearls of Liberty. Today is June 8th, 2013, and of course, the Bilderberg meeting is going on, and we'll have a little bit to say about that. But we did want to note a few other things, and Don found this about Mario Murillo, and Mario is not fully awake, but it's interesting that some Christian teachers are at least beginning to talk about things like Benghazi, Fast and Furious. Now, if there was a Republican in office, we might not hear as much from them, and they're definitely not fully awake, and Mario's not either, but at least they're seeing some of these issues and the significance of them.
Yeah, and obviously what's triggering this is the stuff that breaks into the news, the mainstream media. There has been a breakthrough with regard to things like the spying scandals, those leaks that came out about Verizon, etc. And it is causing people to say, hey, we thought we lived in a free country. And Mario is picking up on that. So once the dam breaks in terms of recognizing that there's a tyrant in the White House, then, yeah, there's just one thing after another, and this is building, and that's good. And what Mario specifically is addressing in this particular blog is the whole concept of, do we just pray as Christians, or do we get involved? And because many Christians who see Mario getting involved politically come to him and say, well, our role is just to pray. And yeah, number one, I agree with Mario, that's a cop-out. But number two, the issue that Mario doesn't quite really address in this blog is that you can't really separate the two, because if you're not informed about the way that the world really works and what's really going on, you're not going to be able to pray wisely and according to the will of God. So, in other words, if you're programmed by the television set to believe the typical sheeple misinformation, well, you're just going to pray for Obama to stop being tyrannical and to get a Republican into the White House. So it all goes together. We've got to get people really fully awake, realizing that we've got some bad things going on that's been building for a long, long time. But I'm highlighting this to show that, like I said before, the dam really is breaking, and you can't get a Republican in the White House that's going to be able to continue this kind of spying and strategy that's very tyrannical. So, yeah, as long as we keep waking up, then we're going in the right direction. And Mario's really helping to do that, and he's providing good ammunition, arguments to use against those who say that Christians should not get involved. And if you listen to us for any length of time, you know that we believe that really that it's been because of the particular agenda of the powers that be wanting to sideline Christians that Christians are even thinking along those lines. So Mario begins to cut through that, and it's encouraging. I found this blog very encouraging.
And another topic that Don wanted to speak on was, and this does pertain to either being withdrawn or being involved, but centered around this issue, Chief Kessler's Constitution Security Force. Just in discussing what Christians can do besides pray, that's a practical question. Well, if we want to do something, what can we do?
And here's a very courageous police chief, and he has taken the stance that if he is asked to side with the federal government against the people, that he won't do it. He'll take off his uniform and he'll side with the people, but before that day even comes, he's going to train people or help train people to be a resistance force against that federal tyranny. So this is exactly what the America's founders envisioned in the separation of powers, that one branch wouldn't be able to dominate because of the separation of power, and the local law enforcement really is where the rubber meets the road, and this guy is on the right track. Some people might think, well, he's gone rogue. No, he's gone exactly constitutional, the opposite of going rogue.
So, what is the emotional response? I know that the cabal wants us to have a response of fear. They want us to be backed into a corner where we are powerless. What emotion? I mean, how emotionally do we cope with the issues that we see all around us, and with our liberties being taken away, and with evil kind of knocking at the door, so to speak? Because just as Christians, sometimes it seems like it's inappropriate if we get angry, or there aren't very many emotions that seem to be acceptable to Christians. We've become these kind of milquetoast people, and there are only a few emotions that we feel like we're allowed to express, and we certainly don't want to be in fear. But what are some alternatives that are appropriate?
Well, first off, we need to realize that we've been hemmed in. We've bought into the spirit of political correctness far more than most people realize, and that it has narrowed our range and our ability to cooperate with the Creator. And our emotions are a powerful force, and anger is a powerful force. That doesn't mean that it's always acceptable. It does mean that it's not always bad. And in fact, right now is a time to get angry, and it's time to take action on that anger, because if we don't, what happens, the stage that we're at now, where the tyranny is uncloaking, and we're seeing it right before our eyes, if we just roll over and say, oh, well, that's what governments do, and we just have to sort of muddle through this, then that's just going to embolden the forces of darkness, and they're going to take further ground. When our role as believers and as light workers, people on the right side of history, our true role is to stand up and be the light, and to refuse to comply with those that want to shut us down, those that want to limit our range. And there's a great clip of David Icke coming up where he talks in great detail about this whole concept of how they want to limit us, they want to limit our reality. And the big way that we press into other realities and do not allow ourselves to be controlled, the way that we fight for the liberty that Christ died for, is that we experience that full range of emotion, and that includes anger, because that is what brings action, which is what brings change, which is what brings the advancement of the kingdom.
And the kind of action that anger can bring is not even, not necessarily any kind of violence. It can be just as something as simple as Homeschooler Uprising in America, just denying the government access to our children, realizing that they do not mean us well, they mean us harm, and through keeping our, not allowing our children to be vaccinated, not inundating them, not immersing them in the medical system, and finding alternatives to being in the system, that's actually one expression of anger that is valid. And I don't think you're not talking about the kind of anger that threatens people or results in violence.
No, I'm just talking about the kind of anger that stands up for your God-given rights and does not let itself be cornered in and manipulated so that it has no choices. It's the kind of anger that says, oh, no, you don't. I am free, and I will live as a free human being. We can't buy into the, oh, well, this is not America anymore, where people aren't really allowed to be free. We have to fight for our heritage. That includes ourselves individually, as well as a group of people that consider themselves to be free. That it has the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, and the anger is just the waking up to learn how to be properly vigilant for the battle at hand. That's what I'm saying.
And psychologically healthy people set boundaries, and they don't permit people to cross certain boundaries. And in much of what the government has been doing, they have been crossing boundaries that all healthy people and all healthy families typically have.
Yeah, and this is what the founders of America well knew, that governments always do this, always grow and become parasitic on the people. And it's gotten well past the point that it was in 1775 or 6, and we need to recognize that as a people. Fortunately, the media is now awakening, and that all that means is that we have a chance. It doesn't mean the battle's been won. It means we have a chance.
And let's use it while we can, y'all. Here's somebody with a different accent. This is a British accent. This is just a great video. Alex Jones and David Icke met in person for the first time yesterday. And this video, Bilderberg and the Spider's Web, David Icke in studio with Alex Jones. This is about a little over an hour long. It's taken from the InfoWars program yesterday. And in many respects, this is just a tremendous overview of what's going on. And to see Alex and David Icke together and partnering and being in agreement is just really a beautiful thing.
I think it's very important for Christians especially to listen to David Icke and to consider what he has to say, and open up your mind to begin to consider other views of reality. It doesn't mean you necessarily adopt them. It means that you've learned how to venture outside of your paradigm, and that's what David talks about here in detail, or in some amount of detail. Can't get into too much detail in the limited amount of time here, but the whole idea that I was alluding to earlier about creativity being based on the range of possibilities. That's what's been limited. That's what the television has done to you. That's what the dumbing down of the educational system has done to you. It's limited us. And David's specific mission is to unlimit people, to get them to see how limitless they really are as created beings of an unlimited God. And he doesn't necessarily use Christian terms. In fact, he definitely doesn't. But he's talking about biblical concepts here, that if Christians can get past their fear of new ideas, that it's very liberating. It's not another way of salvation, because this is really not even it's salvation in another perspective. It's learning how to not be limited in terms of your God-given potential. So it's great stuff, and I just really highly recommend this conversation to anybody listening to this video. It's worth your time.
And interestingly enough, we once saw David Icke speak live, and he does actually quote scripture, which was kind of surprising to us to some extent. He definitely knows the Bible, and he doesn't quote scripture to disavow it either, or to make fun of it. He quotes scripture to help people understand evil as he perceives it, and the actual struggle that's going on. He very much advocates love as the answer to the problems that we're facing. And when he talks about the realm of possibility, he's talking about that we're limited both in our ability to perceive the evil that's being perpetrated, and we're limited as far as being able to see our own potential, that really our perceptions have kept us blind and weak. And talk about fear. I mean, this is if we can't break out of our perceptions and we perceive these evil people the way they want us to perceive them, then we will be in fear. But as David Icke says, it's all an illusion.
Yeah, and I want to point out one thing about the Bible and Scripture, and that it's designed by God, I believe, as a historical record for people that want to fight for freedom. And I don't mean that from a military standpoint, but I mean that from a spiritual standpoint. And that it's a record of overcoming those that sought to control and to harness and make slaves out of what God had always designed to be free. So if you think of the Bible that way, then it's a tool of enlightenment. But if you think of the Bible as a religious book that's to be used by a religious system, then it becomes a book about control that doesn't set you free, and you miss all the other stuff. So I'm encouraging people to think of it in the former way, and that's the way that David Icke uses Scripture. It's a book that sets you free, but you have to have a freedom mindset. You have to realize what Jesus, the central character of the Bible, both in the Old and the New, because the Old just points to him in many, many different ways. It's all about the not building a system to contain people, but breaking down systems that limit people. And sometimes those systems take personal form, and sometimes they don't. But all of the historical record of the Scripture can help you see that.
And David Icke and Alex talked together a little bit about Princess Diana, which I find really interesting. And I know a lot of women have a real heart level sense of identity with Diana. Not that we share her identity, but women can identify with Diana and her struggles. And a lot of people have a real heart for her. And what these men have to say about her is very interesting. David Icke did some interviews in 1998 with a lady who was one of Diana's best friends. And of course it's all in the context of how evil the Windsors are, and just really what kind of people these icons who we are kind of encouraged to worship are really just, in many respects, the darkest of the dark, and deserve not only do not deserve our worship, but really don't even deserve our respect in many aspects.
Yeah, and that example is great, because I think that really what that example of Diana does is it boils down or highlights all of this stuff that I was talking about, that in terms of freedom fighter and biblical history, it is real in a personal way today. This is a woman who was taken captive by an evil system that was seeking to just use her as a breeder, and then discard her, and because she didn't fit for their plans other than for that. And anyway, this makes it very personal to us, because we know that story. At least some of us do, and everybody knows Diana, knew of her, but some people know some of the backstory. So it's another entryway into understanding the way the world really works. And again, it ties in perfectly with accounts of freedom fighters throughout history and biblical stories.
So we do thank you for joining us this week, and we had a suggestion in our comments last week for the video that somebody suggested that we zoom in and out of, that we pan in and out of ourselves talking, and we may add that feature at some point. But we do, just by way of explanation, we switched to this format just because it's so easy to edit and so easy to produce. But we do really appreciate your comments. We just thank you for watching our videos.
Okay, and this week, as every week, we We encourage you to see the world the way that it really is. See yourself in it. Walk your walk. You are the one you've been waiting for.